Hey everyone, it's a beautiful summer day and I wanted to take a second and show you some greenery that would be really great to use this time of year. Plus, if you're a grower, I wanted to recommend these items to perhaps include in your collection of plant material to grow so that way you have a great selection of greenery, and florists also, maybe your customers or maybe bouquets you make will have additional greenery and foliages to include just to kind of set them apart and to make things look wow. So if you're new here, I'm Scott Shepard. I'm host of the Flower Podcast. I've been in the floral industry for well over 30 years and I just enjoy making an impact for floral designers, flower farmers alike, to just make our industry better. So over the past couple weeks, I know I have shared at least this one before. So we had an episode on herbs. If you missed it, I'd check it out. Basil. This basil, we cut this yesterday and it looks great. It holds up great. It's a wonderful flower. You do want to make sure, let it drink really well before you start using it because you want to make sure it holds up well. I will say that this is only, probably in about 3 or 4 days, this will start rooting. That's how well of a cut flower that it makes. You can cut it longer than this. We were just pruning our plants, and so that's why this is a little bit shorter, but this is a great foliage to use in just about anything, floral design wise, bouquet wise, or maybe even cooking wise if you're going to be using it for that. So another thing that I wanted to show you, and this is kind of a common plant, but it's not always thought about for foliage. It's usually thought about more for things like landscapes, and it's flowers, and this is Camellia. Now Camellia, this is a Japonica, Camellia Japonica, and it typically will bloom in very early spring into spring. Sasanquas, which have a smaller leaf, typically bloom more in the fall into winter. Now I will say that both camellias are great foliages. The waxy leaves hold up well and they're very durable. You just want to make sure that the new growth has hardened off. So right now, this time of year, you can see this fresh, beautiful foliage is already hardened off and it is ready to use. And a bunch can go a long way if you're a designer. If you are a grower, you can cut and cut and cut on these shrubs and they're so forgiving. So anyway, Camellia is a great plant for foliage that you might want to think about. Now another plant, which is, because local growers recently, and I say recently, last maybe 5-6 years, have grown more and more and more of this flower for the cut industry, and that is Baptisia. And Baptisia is an incredible spring flower. It usually blooms, well, I guess it depends where you are, but let's just say May to be safe. And of course, we know it as false indigo, which because of its brilliant blue flowers, but there's so many amazing varieties out there now. There's yellows and browns and lemonade, I think is kind of a lavendery pink. There's all these crazy colors. Anyway, but Baptisia, once the flowers are gone, the foliage holds up well and is beautiful in all kind of floral work, and it holds up well. Now, one thing I will say is when you go to cut foliage, you want to make sure you leave some of it. So don't cut all of it. Maybe cut half or a third of the foliage there. Some people say you can cut as much as 2/3, but I would probably just cut about half, only because you want to leave some plant foliage to feed into that mother plant, because you don't want it to you want it to have enough energy for next year to keep blooming. So don't cut too much, but it's a great foliage if you've got lots of it. Next thing I want to show is a very common thing, and in fact I just cut this a minute ago, and that is oak foliage. So I love the texture of oak, especially as we go into fall. I'm not quite ready for color yet. Are you? I'm not ready for fall color, but I do love this deep green leaf, and I love this sort of spiky lobing that this leaf has. And so there's a lot of different kinds of oak, and they're all great as cut. You do want to the later in the season you get, a lot of times you'll see bug damage from just nature. It happens, right? But earlier, after it's hardened off good, it's still great to use. And so oak foliage is a foliage that I would really use. I know I even cut some branches that were 4 feet tall one time for a customer, and it was for, I think, an event or something, and they held up wonderfully, and they were so beautiful. They fill in so well, but oak is a great foliage to use, and sometimes you might even get a little acorn there. So oak is really great. Now, snowberry is a plant that a lot of times, we think about because of the beautiful white, pink, hot pink berries. Some of them are blush, some of them are different kind of colors, but snowberry, a lot more people are trying to grow it, and to grow it for the fruit because it's such a great thing. Well, the foliage can also hold up really well. So you can see on here where there's some little teeny tiny flowers trying to do their thing and set their fruit. But sometimes you need foliage, and you know what? It's great for that. And you might need to prune your shrubs anyway. So why not do a dual purpose and prune your shrubs and use the foliage? It's great for bouquets. It has a good length to it. I love the color of it, the texture of it. Sometimes it does have a little bit of fall color to it, which I think is great too. So snowberry foliage can be great for this. And we will include all of these names in the notes down below, so that way you can remember all of them here. One thing that we have shown, I think before, but it's been a little while, mine is short, that's why you see it short, is Coleus. And Coleus comes in a myriad of colors and combinations, and sometimes those color combinations can fight design work because of the different kinds of color mixes that the foliage have. But if you can get leaves like this, or varieties like this with more solid type leaves, designers will probably like it better because it'll be easier to pair with their color palette. If this had hot pink in it and yellow in it and this wonderful rust tone to it, it'd be kind of hard to match with other things. It holds up really well cut. This has been in here about a week, and I don't know if you can see, already has roots coming. So it's going to make a good cut if it'll even root in water. So it lasts a long time. So let's see here. We've got some more goodies that I want to show. One is this variegated foliage. And a lot of times people do like variegated foliage. This is Euonymus. Euonymus comes in lots of really interesting combinations of foliages. There's this is more of kind of a pale cream and green color. There's also more of a bright gold and green color. There's solid greens. There's some varieties that are more gold. There's lots of different Euonymuses out there, and they hold up really, really well. They do sometimes have some pest issues with scale and some other bugs, so you might have to make sure you stay on top of that because you don't want that to get out of control because you would lose a lot of it. But Euonymus makes a great cut foliage. One of my favorites, I'm sure I've shown this before on here, but I've got to show it again, is Variegated Weigela. Weigela comes in a lot of different colors. There's chocolate varieties, there's green varieties, all these different varieties, but variegated is my favorite. I love this shade of yellow green. It's almost chartreusey, and I think it goes with everything, and I think it's a big wow. A lot of times I know when you have dark arrangements and things, it's nice to add this kind of variegation because it helps brighten up the interior of a design, so that way you can see everything. So Weigela is great. I personally love the variegated one just because I love the color of it. Now this is something I'm starting to see more and more of, and that is blackberry foliage, and so, or raspberry foliage, whichever. Now I will say that you kind of want to grow varieties that tend to be thornless. This one has some teeny tiny things in it that can kind of hurt, but for the most part this is thornless, and it holds up so well. And a lot of times you'll see these growing tips, which to me aren't that attractive, but if you can prune them and get really pretty foliage like that, I think you'll see and agree that this kind of foliage is really, really great. And again, here's another plant that you might need to prune anyway, just to kind of thin out canes and things. Why not get a double benefit? Prune and use the foliage in design work or in bouquets. So blackberry foliage. one thing that I like, and I don't see as much as I used to, but I really wish I saw more of it, and that is Caladium foliage. There's a lot of different colors of Caladiums, but Caladiums hold up really, really well. I've got some in my window vase in there, and they're over a week old already, and they just keep on. And to me, again, it's a big block. It takes up some space in an arrangement. It gives you this really pretty pink. There's varieties with white, there's varieties with red, there's all kinds of hundreds of different kind of caladiums. A great cut stem. It does hold up well, but I would probably use it more for event work, even though it does last. So caladiums are definitely worth growing. Now, I just cut this, so it's a little bit sad, but I think it'll be a little forgiving. And that's tomato foliage. We get in, from one of our growers, we'll get in, I think they're like cherry tomatoes or some kind of grape tomato, little tiny tomatoes that have beautiful vines. Will even have flowers like this. It may even have a tomato on them. But tomatoes make great cut foliage too. You don't want to cut them like this time of day like I just did. You want to cut them earlier in the day when they're still really firm and they haven't been out in the sun. But I was so excited to show you this that I went ahead and cut some, and it holds up really well. So tomato foliage is kind of fun. Not everybody loves the fragrance of it, but I do think it's a fun texture, especially for summer arrangements, because it's not very expected. And before you know it, guess what? Surprise! Somebody sees something they haven't seen before. Now this is something that came out of the Pacific Northwest, so I'm not quite sure the zones for this, but this is Diervilla. Diervilla, and it is a wonderful foliage. It doesn't, you can see where it's trying to put on some new growth, but this is some color that I think is just spectacular. We've had it green, we've had it more yellowy kind of a color, but now that it's turning this amber color, this rusty tones, I just love it. And so I think it's great. It holds up super well. You can tell it's very, very rigid, very easy to hold up. You can even see here where this has got like some seed pods on it. I don't know if you can see that, but they have bloomed. Now they're going to seed. They're very hardy, very tough, but I love the color and I think it's really great. I think that might be everything. I had some cotinus to show you, smoke bush, because smoke bush provides great foliage, but it's looking awfully sad because I think it wasn't in the water all the way. But I will say that foliages, again, are a great source of revenue if you're a flower farmer, because it's one of those things that people forget, and they need them. They need these foliages to help include in their designs. And if you're making bouquets, or if you're a florist or a gardener and you're wanting to plant some things in your garden, I'd suggest a lot of these items so that way you can have foliage and have some greenery that's a little different than everybody else and unexpected. So I'm Scott Shepard with the Flower Podcast. I hope that you found this helpful. All these amazing foliages are great, especially for floral design. So have a great day.